We're glad to have Bill speak to us and give us an update and to connect with us and take it away, Bill.
All right. I will just talk briefly, and then I'm curious to know what y'all are thinking about. First of all, just to be in the same space, it's not really a room, but the same space as Dr. Bullard is a tremendous honor for those of us who are older. You know, we spent our whole lifetimes knowing about his work and following his work and thinking about what he's, the new dimensions that he's added to this work over the years. So Dr. Bullard, what a pleasure, as always, in your company. He also, as it turns out to be the great modern master of Twitter. 7,000 or 8,000 tweets a day, you have good education about all things that are important. And it's great to be with you all. When I saw that there was a big delegation from HBCUs coming, I was really happy because it's something that's been missing in the past. And you know, I do tons of organizing all around campuses all over the world, all kinds. It's really good to get people over here now some of the time. Partly because we need you to, you know, pump up these guys and make some progress. Partly so that we can see what's going on, because it's not, for the most part, really all that good what goes on. I mean, here's how I think about what we're doing here in Paris. This isn't the game, this is the scoreboard, okay? We spent the last 5 years organizing, marching, going to jail, sitting in, writing papers, blah, blah, blah. It's been really good and really important, and it's put some pressure on the system, and now we see how much pressure. It's like we've been playing poker for 5 years now. We break in a few chips, and then tomorrow we start the game again when this is over, okay? Because we're going to get an agreement out of here. We've got a big enough movement that they can't stiff us completely like they did in Copenhagen, where we got nothing, okay? But the fossil fuel industry is still stronger than we are. So we're not going to get an agreement anything like we need. You saw that they're going to include maybe in the text a 1.5 degree target, you know, which is good. A bunch of us did a sit-in yesterday over next to the plenary session, and we were all chanting 1.5, we might survive, okay? Led by our friends on the low-lying island nations probably will disappear sometime in the next 40 years, you know. But that 1.5 degree temperature target in the text isn't anything at all like what they're actually planning to do. If you add up all the promises they're actually making the plan to do, the temperature of the planet's going to go up 3.5 degrees Celsius, 6 or 7 degrees Fahrenheit. We're not going to be able to live in most of the places we live now. We're not going to be able to farm the way we farm. We're not going to be able to have civilizations if the temperature goes up 6 or 7 degrees. So the thing that they're giving us is not very good, all right? Just good enough to encourage us to keep fighting going forward, because we figure now we see, as movements have always seen, that when you organize, you start to win, okay? Our problem is we're up against the most powerful opponent any movement's ever had to go up against, which is the fossil fuel industry. No kidding, the richest industry in the history of the world. Exxon has made more money each of the last 5 years than any company in the history of money. Okay? So I hope I'm not being too cynical. I hope I'm not turning you cynical too early if I say that sometimes in our world, money buys you somewhat more power than you otherwise deserve. Does that seem reasonable? Well, in this case, it's bought them the U.S. Congress, all right? And most other Congresses around the world. They own them. That's why we've done nothing. I wrote the first book about climate change. I wrote it before you guys were born, okay? We knew about the problem in the late 1980s. It turns out, as we've learned in the last 8 weeks from a series of newspaper revelations, it wasn't just me who knew about it. Exxon knew everything there was to know about it. They had great climate models. They're great scientists that were working for them, that were telling them how much the world was going to warm. They knew all about it. They knew about it so well that they used all that information to go bid on new oil leases up in the Arctic because they knew it was going to melt. Okay? But did they tell anybody? No. They spent tens of millions of dollars building this whole big architecture of denial and deceit. They hired all the guys who used to work for the tobacco industry to come work for them, spreading the same kind of doubt about climate change. We should not be at COP21. We should have reached an agreement at COP 1 or 2 in 1995 or 1996 and gotten to work, you know. Instead, we're just now starting. If we did through this week, it'll be the first international agreement of any kind, you know. Meanwhile, you know, we've waited an awful long time. In the last week, while we've been here, there's been flooding so bad in Chennai, in India, a city of 8 million people, that it was cut off from the rest of the world. Hundreds of people drowned. It was a lot like what happened in New Orleans, okay? Flooding so bad in the UK and the United Kingdom that whole towns were underwater. Flooding so bad in the Maldives and the Indian Ocean that April was washing away. Flooding so bad in Norway and Sweden that they broke 200-year-old records. The day before yesterday, Portland, Oregon, which is kind of a wet place to begin with, had the rainiest day in its history. Okay? Today, in western Washington state, it's so hot, record temperatures, that all the snow up in the Cascades is melting. There's a big rainstorm going on at the same time, and landslides are closing highways up and down the western side of Washington. This is what happens when a climate starts to get out of control. We've raised the temperature 1 degree so far, and this is the kind of thing that's happening. If we had it go up 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, 2.5 degrees, Katie barred the door. I mean, it's just, you know, the scientists are clear that if we let that happen, you guys get to spend the prime of your careers dealing with not the stuff you're studying in school. You get to spend it dealing with emergency response, okay? That's what you're going to need. So our job is to get this up as fast as we can. We can't stop global warming. That's no longer one of the possibilities. Maybe if we started 25 years ago, we could have, we didn't. We can maybe keep it from getting utterly out of control, but that's going to take a hell of a lot more organizing than we've put in already. We just had a press conference over in the Blue Zone a few minutes ago to announce big plans around the world for the spring, and the announcements came when it was made by our colleague Liddy Nakpil from the Philippines, Kumi Naidu from South Africa, Nemo Basse from Africa, a fellow whose name I can't pronounce from Turkey, all the kind of global colleagues, because this is a big global movement, okay? The best parts of the movement are fully globalized, fully connected, everybody working together. What we're going to do in May in every country in the world is find the biggest carbon deposits, the huge coal mines, oil fields, whatever. We'll be doing civil disobedience in a lot of those places. I think what we're going to be doing in the States, though it's a little less clear for sure, but I think what we're going to be doing is going after Exxon as hard as we can, okay? Exxon has conveniently placed 11,000 good locations for having demonstrations all across America. You've seen them. They have the large Exxon Mobil sign outside, and they sell you gasoline, okay? I went up to the one near my home in Vermont a 6 weeks or so ago, and I just took a sign that said this station is temporarily closed because Exxon lied, and I sat there for 20 minutes. I gave the guy who ran the store $100 because it wasn't his fault. You know, I didn't want to destroy his trade for the day. But I just sat there until the police come and haul me away, all right? And it was good. It did what it was supposed to do. It got some of the message out. For a while that afternoon, it was the top trending story on Facebook until it was replaced by a video of a corgi dog barking at a miniature pumpkin. But for a moment, it did the right thing, okay? We're going to need a ton of that kind of stuff, all right? It's stupid that we have to go to jail in order to deal with this stuff. In a rational world, we would not have to do any of this stuff. It makes no sense, okay? But We do, because there is too much power on the other side. Now, one of the good things that's happening is that this movement is increasingly managing to make common cause with lots of other movements at the same time. So we just did, the night before last, they're beginning to run together in my mind. Okay? But we did a big event with the people who are my favorite partners, have been for the last couple of years in this whole fight, which are the guys at the Hip Hop Caucus. Lennox Yearwood has become my just closest confidant and colleague in this work. And they've really started environmental understanding how things are linked. So we were in, Dr. Wright, we were in New Orleans with Lennox marching on the 10th anniversary of Katrina, and that was a great day, and we had that powerful panel that morning and things. By the next day, this tour was in Ferguson, okay? And it was talking about police violence, and it was talking about divestment from fossil fuels, because power rests in a very narrow set of hands in our country. Who, you guys have heard of the Koch brothers, yeah? Okay, taken together, the two of them are the richest man in the world, all right? They're worth $100 billion. They made their money in oil and gas. They're going to spend $900 million on this year's election. That's more than the Republicans or the Democrats spent on last time's election, okay? Koch brothers, party of two, all right? When they win, if they win, they're going to make sure nothing happens about climate, but they're also going to make sure that every other bad thing that they can think of happens. Unions are busted, public education is wrecked, that every other thing we need for social progress gets taken down. So as these movements come together, there are real opportunities finally, and that's a good thing. People used to say, okay, that environmentalism was something that rich white people did. And if you didn't know where your next meal was coming from or something, you wouldn't be environmentalist. People like Dr. Fowler, Dr. Wright, that began to make clear that that wasn't true. For me, the real revelatory moment that when we started 350.org 8 years ago, it was myself and 7 college students, okay? And our first thing we did was organize this global day of action all over the world. We just asked people all over the world to do something. And we didn't know how well it would work, okay? But it turned out it worked well, because there were lots of people, mostly young people, who wanted to do something. And we had 5,200 demonstrations in 181 countries on the same day. And the pictures from those things were coming in 30 and 40 a minute quickly for a while. Okay, so I was just sitting there transfixed, watching these pictures come up, boom, in fact, we started projecting them up on one of those big screens at the end of Times Square that usually have vodka ads that we were showing these pictures as they were coming in. The thing that really struck me after watching them for about 10 minutes was like that thing about how rich white people, almost everybody that we were working with around the world was poor, black, brown, Asian, young. Because that's what the world actually consists of, okay? And what do you know? Everybody is exactly as worried about the future as anybody else. In fact, maybe more so, because the people in the poorest parts of the world, the future is crashing down hard on your head right now. I mean, not some future threat, not something that's going to happen 10 years from now, or happen to your children, or happen to your grandchildren. It's something that happened last week. We did this mock trial of Exxon over the weekend off in the middle of Paris, and it was great. We can watch the footage, some of the footage now. But the first person to testify was a friend of mine from the Marshall Islands, a young woman named Kathy, yay tall, but very strong woman. And I was acting as the kind of prosecuting attorney trying to get her story out, because we were trying to convict Exxon, as it were. In the Marshall Islands, the highest part of the country is a meter above sea level, this far above sea level. Every person she knows, every person she loves, every relative she has is a meter above sea level, okay? Which is going to be current trends underwater in 50 years, and already is under the water some of the time. I said, tell this courtroom about that. And she said, well, you know, last spring we had an especially big tide, and it washed right through. My mother woke me up in the middle of the night and said, you got to get up. You know, she said, well, what? And right at that moment, a big tide washed through and it carried away. One of the things it took away was my diary, you know, that I've kept for all these years, just disappeared right out the door, and she was almost in tears just remembering it. And then she said, the other thing it washed away was a lot of the graves of our ancestors who were buried there, you know. A little atoll, it's not much wider than this room. Just, they've been there for thousands of years, but now they're not there anymore. Think about that. Think about the fact that people have lived someplace for 5,000 or 10,000 years, and then they couldn't live there anymore because companies like Exxon literally flat out, straight up, just told lies and kept us from doing stuff. If I get a little over emotional about all of this, I apologize. But it's hard when you now know as many people as I know around the world who have to deal with this stuff. So I guess all I'm trying to say is thank you so much for being a part of this. Absolutely essential to it. And the thing to realize, if it begins to seem discouraging, because sometimes it seems discouraging to me, I just remind myself, I look at some of those endless pictures in our Flickr account and remind myself that we have brothers and sisters the world over who are engaged in this fight and engaged in it in all kinds of ways. And we're getting better and better and better at it. Look at someone like Anthony. Look at the work they're doing. They're able to start moving things. We're not going to win everything. We're going to lose some bad things this week. You know, Exxon's going to win. I'm afraid to fight tomorrow. But we took one off them 3 weeks ago. We won this fight over the Keystone Pipeline that had been absorbing us, probably some of you, for year upon year. You know? So we're ready to do some winning of our own as well. In fact, I think that we're going to win more and more fights. The thing I can't guarantee you is that we might have waited too long to get started. And I curse myself sometimes for that. Catching up with the physics of climate change is going to be hard. But maybe we still have some room to keep it from getting utterly entirely out of control. We'll see, but it's going to depend on all of us working harder than we've worked even before on all of this. So I look forward to doing it shoulder to shoulder with y'all and start checking out where the Exxon stations in your local neighborhood are located. That's what I would say. I'm eager to hear what you guys are thinking about, what you're working on, what you guys are doing here, and your kind of impressions from these this week out here.
So I'm a graduate of Dillon University. These last 2 weeks we spent a lot of time developing solutions that we can take back to our neighborhoods and mechanisms to implement them. So we coordinated with the NAACP, tons of individuals from around the world to develop a blueprint that spreads awareness and that really connects the dots for our community between climate change and our everyday issues. So for example, food deserts and our access to water. It's directly linked to climate change. I think this has been a great experience for us all, just developing skills to navigate these spaces, right? So some of us have been able to go into the blue zone and been able to witness some of the malarkey, right? And some of the good things that have been going on, right? So I think that's pretty much the gist of what we're doing. We had the opportunity today to be debriefed by the State Department, and I believe that's it. We've done a lot of interviews.
It's so important, that work on figuring out how to connect this stuff up at home. I think the sleeper issue for the next 4 or 5 years, one of the key words in our vocabulary is going to be asthma, over and over again, because all of a sudden we've sort of seen it in in poor communities in the U.S. and in urban communities, but now everybody around the world is seeing it. I don't know whether people saw the pictures from Beijing yesterday. Beijing closed schools yesterday. The biggest city in the world, nobody went to school, not because it was snowing, not because it was air was too dirty. You know what makes that really sad? The particulate matter in Beijing yesterday was 235 parts per million. In New Delhi, it was 400 parts per million. But they kept going to school, okay, because it hasn't yet reached that level of consciousness there, but it's going to. And this is a worldwide, climate change can be a little hard to see sometimes, but the other stuff that comes from fossil fuels is right in your face all the time. It's so key. Glad you're doing that. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
So since I've been new to them, alright, so basically the first thing I want to say is that I thought initially that us working on climate change, I thought personally that this was something way above my head. You know, something, how could I help to change all the things that have been done in the past? But I've learned through COP21 that there's so much of us working on this issue, so much of us care about this issue. And that's an important thing, that's a message that I think we should bring home as well. You know, because I didn't think it was I could make any change, you know?
I think it's such an important point. I think the biggest problem in getting people to work on climate change and all on hasn't been that they don't care about it. It's been that it seems so big and we seem so small in comparison that it's like, okay, give me some other problem that I might be able to work on. So for a long time, environmentalists mostly just said, here's a bunch of individual solutions. Change your light bulb, whatever. Those are good. Those are important. I've changed all my light bulbs. I got solar panels coming off my ears. Every possible place, all right? But I don't fool myself that that's how we solve global warming. This is a structural, systemic problem. It's rooted in how power is distributed. So the only way for individuals really to solve it is not to be individuals so much.
The numbers.
Join. Movement. Exactly right. And it's been a useful 2 weeks. You guys figured that out, then you're way ahead. It took me many years to figure that out. So,
but I was wondering, my question was going to be, how would I'm from Jamaica, and the people in America are way more aware of the issue at hand. They're way more aware, and I wanted to know how we could expand this to countries like mine, where people, like I've been discussed before, people are worrying about other things.
That's why we started building out this global day of action so everybody could start. I mean, parts of the Caribbean had enormous participation and engagement. So you got to take it back to Jamaica. We'll hook you up with people that are already there and with others around the Caribbean. In May, we're going to be doing these big global days of action, and there should be something, in Kingston, that would be everybody can see. That would be just perfect. That would be great.
Thank you very much. Thank you for paving the way as well.
I understand that you have a student diversity organization.
Yes.
Freepeople.org. And I'm just trying to understand. I know that there are a lot of people there and a lot of PWIs. But is there any way that the HBCUs can get involved with the student diversity?
Absolutely. Some of them already are. There's campaigns at Howard and some other places that at least started. This divestment thing is so simple. Any place where there's a pile of money, an endowment, a portfolio, every college, no matter how small, has some kind of endowment money set aside. Okay? It's invested in stock. All we've said is don't invest in stock in companies that are wrecking the planet. And more and more now people are joining in. So lots of colleges have begun to divest. Stanford, Oxford, Syracuse, Georgetown, and lots of other things. The World Council of Churches, United Church of Christ. Not everybody. I'm a Methodist. We're still fighting to get the Methodists to divest. But big, even now big companies starting to divest, things like that. So you just got to sit with your board of trustees and show them the data, which among other things shows that they make more money if they don't invest. And then you get them to try and do some more. And if they don't, well then you have to sometimes be a little more persuasive. At MIT right now, at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the students are in day 57 of the sit-in outside the president's office to get them to divest. it's a hard case because the Koch brothers are on the board of trustees at MIT. Count yourselves lucky if the Koch brothers aren't on the board of trustees at the university.
So it's interesting that when we were looking into that investment, you can't go to your website. But so the issue is that with that investment, of course, Exxon is incorporated. They donate money to all these different corporations and institutions. But the problem is that if we're divesting, we have to find a way to replace those funds as well. So would you think? Do you know of any major energy efficient companies?
Absolutely. There's a whole new reinvestment component. One of the places to invest money is right back into school in terms of making it more energy efficient. They're finding that in most universities, you can take $1 million and put it in things like new light bulbs and new ventilation systems. The return on investment in energy savings is about 15 to 20% a year. You're making more money than you ever made investing in Texas. It just takes a little thinking about because the trustees are used to thinking about one of those things as an investment and the other as a capital expenditure, and they got to kind of just do a little rethinking in their mind. But it's possible, and they'll hook you up with all the time.
One of the things we also have to take into consideration is that some of these major schools that have divested from fossil fuels, they have like $1 million endowments from HBCU.
Oh, don't worry. The more money you have, the harder it is to do anything. Believe me, the more money you get, the more conservative you get. Rich people, in my experience, are the hardest people on earth to do anything.
They got more oil money. We ain't got money.
No matter what it is, trust me, if you want to borrow $5 from someone, find someone who has $50, not someone who has $50 million. The $50 million person is not interested in borrowing $5. There's tons of work to be done here, and we'll help you all the way to the end. Email me. I'm Bill.McKibben at Gmail, and I get my email every day, and I'm happy to help you connect people up with whoever's doing what.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Hi, Denise Young. From Texas Southern University. Yes, so I get to study right on here. That's Fuller. So I was a part of we were all a part of the Super Climate March, and yes, last year. And so we wanted to know how do we actually take our message. I think one thing is how are recognized nationally sometimes for taking this message. Like some of those universities, your primary ideas to the forefront. So how do we actually get this there?
So you're starting just right when it's coming together. Combination is always the first part of the movement, right? You get critical mass, and you guys got a critical mass. So as you take, before I leave, I want to get a picture of you all so I can, start sending things out. I've actually, Anthony sent me some stuff, so I've been tweeting it out. I have now, somehow I got to have 170,000 followers on Twitter, so I feel like that's like my most useful thing I do all day is tweet sometimes. But that's, if you find a message, if you can agree on a powerful message to get out, whatever it is, around investment, around whatever, it will spread and we will help it spread because you guys have an important voice. HBCUs are such an important part of American history, American tradition, and such an inspiration to so many other parts of the world. There's an entire continent that thinks about the HBCUs in the way that other people think about the Ivy League or something. Those are the places where Howard, Spelman, Texas Southern, everywhere else are just, known and understood. So this is a really important message about we will spread it.
Everybody, thank you so much for being here. We're going to come around and take a group shot with Bill. And I just wanted to say one more thing. You heard what Bill was saying about HBCUs, and I think that is a complete rebuke
of what Justice Scalia said just the other day about HBCUs being slow track schools. HBCUs are not slow track schools. And I just remind Justice Scalia that it was a Yale graduate that took slow to respond to Hurricane Katrina. So, all very, very close.
Thank you.
This actually talking about the female representation.
Getting on the ground today. Come on. You know that's our place. Hey, sir. Take a picture?
Yeah, I'll take. I said no.
Oh, is that it? No, you said you did not. We promise. What if we promise? Hey. That'd be graceful. Right?
Alright. We're going to take a couple, so hang on.
Do you need spirit fingers as well?
We could. Hang on. What do y'all say when you want to be heard at the
HBCU.
Sounds good to me. 1, 2, 3.
HBCU.
All right.
Dr. Cole wanted to get one.
You get them all? Oh, hang on, we got more selfies. Hang on.
So we can tweet it.
Yeah, I am taking. All right. And it's on Dr. Will's phone right there.
HBCU.
HBCU.
HBCU. HBCU. HBCU. HBCU. HBCU.
Alright, thanks everybody. Just finishing our luncheon time conversation with Bill McKibben and HBCU students. I'm Drew Hudson, the director here at Environmental Action. And one last thing before you go, right above this window there's a little link where you can chip in to support this kind of work. We were able to sponsor a couple of the HBCU students to come over, but we'd love to chip in more. And if you are able to donate today to support this kind of work, we'll be able to do that. So if you thought this was an important conversation, we want to see more HBCU students here in Paris and at conversations like this, then donate right above and we'll help make it happen. Thanks again from everybody at Environmental Action. I'm Drew Hudson. Hey there.
Hey there.
You remember how that works.
What?